In addition to the deaths of Ron Orsini and Alice MacArthur, the saga of Mary Lee Orsini had many other victims. That included people who were directly involved in the case and those who were further away in the impact zone. On this episode of the Orsini Tapes, we have a story about the latter. Today, Tracee King is 55 years old and living in Puerto Rico, where she owns an aerial tour guide service. But on the night of March 11th, 1981, she was with a sick 10-year-old girl trying to go to sleep in her second-floor bedroom located at 7413 Pontiac Drive in North Little Rock. Yes, in the moments after Ron Orsini was likely murdered, she was the girl who looked out her window at just the right moment and saw a mysterious, dark car with its interior light on, driving down the street. And a few minutes later, it returned. We now present a conversation I had with Tracee King about being collateral damage in the Mary Lee Orsini case and the guilt she felt over her involvement up until listening to the Orsini tapes.
Okay, well, I'm super curious how you got involved.
Complete accident.
Me too.
No. So almost 2 years ago, I was doing a story on a state police cold case that got solved, and so I went down to our morgue, where we have, just drawers and drawers of old newspaper clips and stuff, and to see if I could find any clips about this one murder. And I found the envelope for that case, and right behind it, this woman's name was Sabrina Underwood. So right behind it was the envelope for the unsolved murders or unsolved mysteries or whatever. And so I took that home and was sorting through it, trying to categorize it. Oh, okay, by year, and okay, these cases actually got solved eventually and whatnot. And in one of the clips was a clip from March of '82 about how the mayor of North Little Rock had posted a reward for, information leading to solving who committed the murder of Ron Orsini. I was like, oh, okay, so that's a name I haven't heard of. And so I just did a search in our online database for Ron Orsini, and just started at March 13th, 1981, and just started going forward, clip by clip, date, story by story. And, it's it is just so weird reading these things. This is weird. This woman, Mary Lee, is weird. All of these red flags. And then you get to her champagne party after she doesn't get indicted, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then I get to the attempted car bombing of Alice MacArthur, and then whoa, okay, what is this? This comes out of left field. So
Right. I mean, it's one of the things that I love. I'm sorry. Let me let you finish.
Okay. So I do a separate search for Alice MacArthur, just so I don't miss anything, right?
Yeah.
And then I made the mistake of doing the search, and it brought up the most recent thing. So it was from a story from 1999 about the trials of the century. And number one was Mary Lee Orsini for the murder of Alice MacArthur. And I'm like, what the hell? So I accidentally spoiled it for myself. So, and then I find out about Widow's Web, and then I read that, and it's just completely different from what was happening, in the newspapers. And it just, the case got under my skin. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then, one day Tony Holt, who's, doing the podcast with me, came over and said, hey, you want to do something about Orsini? Yes. And so we just went down this rabbit hole of, gathering all these tapes, gathering all these case files, interview transcripts, all this. And now after working on it since last April, it's almost done. So.
That's so crazy. I love the fact that, again, I'm not trying to maximize my, who I was in the case.
Yeah.
It's just that for me and my family, this was such a huge deal. And over the years, trying to describe it to somebody, you have this huge thing in your past, in your life, and it seems like, oh, you must have been watching too many episodes of Dallas, You've been watching too many soap operas or crime shows because that's too out there, and then, I never talk about it because you can't describe how the newspapers competition between them was feeding into everything, and Tommy Robinson, and even as a child, I remember like the drama and the fuel being added to the fire, and I love that you're kind of capturing that whole vibe of, I think y'all really nailed it, honestly.
Thank you.
For people that were not there at the time. I mean, everybody was scrambling to go out and get their paper. And it would be like 2 and 3 pages, in the paper of just constant, of reading about it. It was like a novel in every paper. And again, everything that I say has to be, this is through the eyes of a very young person. But definitely my memory is pages and pages of, coming out and, what new thing happened today? What new thing has come to light? It definitely, I do have a perspective, but, again, it was as everything is as a child, but, I felt guilt right up until listening to these tapes. I mean, I just turned 55 and I'm like, I've, talked to people over the years of the guilt that I feel about how I think that she used me seeing that car as a way to create doubt and that's how she got off on killing her husband. And if I had not seen that car, could she have maybe not, murdered Alice? And so, sorry.
No, you're fine. No, I understand what you mean.
I was married a long time, and hearing everybody's story of manipulation and how crazy, she was, it's like, I realized, again, just what a small piece of the, that's all I was, so it's comforting.
I've told both, the MacArthurs and I've also talked to, Kelly Orsini, who's the daughter of, Ron's sister, Linda House.
Okay.
So, and I mean, I've told them, like, if what we've done with this podcast can help you guys better understand what you lived through, then that's the most important thing I could get out of this.
And that's how I feel about it, 100%. I'm grateful. And at first I was like, oh no, it's going to dredge all that up. I don't want to have to remember it in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
But then at the same time, after I listened to I had a friend of mine from high school reach out and say, hey, weren't you involved in this? I kind of remember. And I was like, oh, you don't have to watch that. Ha ha. And then I'm thinking, no way in hell I'm going to watch that. and then, I thought, no, this will be good. I want to hear and remember things that I've forgotten. And after I listened to the one that mentioned me, the second episode, and hearing her voice, I was done for work the rest of the day. I was trying to explain to my husband, he's from North Little Rock also. We're the same age. We graduated high school together and everything. And he was a young kid, so he doesn't remember it very well, except more through me telling of my involvement. But anyway, I just looked at it. I was like, man, it was weird hearing her voice. It was just like I'm kind of in shock.
Yeah.
Because that's it. So let me back up. We didn't know them at all.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, let's just start from the beginning. So tell me a little bit about your family. How long were you guys living there on Pontiac? How long did you guys live there?
Yeah, so we moved there in October. I'm from Springdale. Then we moved to West Memphis. We were there 10 months, and then we moved to North Little Rock. And my parents didn't want to move to Little Rock because they wanted to be somewhere safer. Even though my dad worked in Little Rock. So we found this little house, moved in. We actually had not really met any of the neighbors. We've been there. We moved in October.
October of 80?
Yeah.
Oh, so you moved there just basically when the Orsinis did too.
Okay, I don't remember when they moved there, but we had not met them.
Okay.
We had waved at them, if we saw them pulling in their driveway and going in the house. We'd go, oh, hey, neighbor, but no going over and officially meeting or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember seeing them like on Halloween, out kind of like passing out candy and stuff, waving, but definitely no real interaction whatsoever. So fast forward then to March. That night, I had actually been sick. I don't remember if it was more like allergies, sore throat, congestion, that kind of thing. And my parents had given me, some medication, and I was coughing my head off. I remember going through cough drops and coughing my head off. So I had propped my pillows up, and I was sleeping propped up on my pillows. And I've always been this way since I was very small. I don't like to close my windows. I don't like curtains. I don't like blinds. I like to have my windows open. So I will oftentimes turn my light off and get dressed or undressed, or if I'm doing stuff, I'll close the blinds with the light on. But then when I go to bed, I turn the light off and open my blinds or curtains. So that was definitely, my habit to do that. And I had like an old antique bed that was high off the ground. So basically the way that I was positioned, I could see outside and kind of down onto the street. Mm-hmm. So on that side of the house. So if you came down Osceola and the Orsini house was on the left, our house would have been straight ahead if you would have, not turned right or left.
Where the two streets met, that's where your house was.
Exactly. So the streets were like a T, and our house was straight ahead of the T. So, and then my room was on the left-hand side, if you were looking straight at the house. So, anyway, was asleep that night. I remember seeing the car and just kind of taking note of it more than anything. It was like just kind of an anomaly. I didn't feel good. I don't remember like if I got up and looked at it or took note. I just remember at this point, I don't remember that. And that was, pretty much it. And the next day, I came home from school and there was a bunch of activity going on. Mm. And I walked in the door, hungry, and I was like, hey, what's happening? There's police over there. And my mom said, yeah, the man that lived there was killed. And my mom said that my eyes got really big, and I went, oh my gosh, I saw a car last night. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, I saw a car. It came by twice. And she goes, don't say anything else. Let me go and get somebody for you to tell this to. I don't want you to tell me first. So she, called somebody, and they came over. They took the statement. And many years later, I asked my mom, because of the confusion with it, I said, do you think I was making that up? But I did ask my mom later. I was so young. I mean, you tell me. I don't have a good memory of, and now I'm even, I don't know, and she said, Tracy, she's like, first of all, you're not a dramatic person. You've never been one to make up stories. And she said, you didn't bat an eye. The second that I told you there was something, you told me that. You didn't go to your room, think about it, come back. You had no time to go and make up something. So she said, I would never believe, that you had not told the truth. And I was like, well, it feels really good to hear that, because I question and doubt myself after. And it's so funny. I told Kenny, I said, and it's because she manipulated my freaking mind. I ended up, after that, when she found out that I had seen a car, then it became full court press to spend time with me. So she would come over and cry and tell stories to my mom, and then she would say, Tiffany's gone, and why don't you come over and bake cookies with me, and you can bring your homework and do homework. And it would just mean so much to me with Tiffany gone, that I don't have to be in the house by myself. And so I ended up, like, she would take me to school, pick me up from school.
Wow.
Spend the night at her house. She gave me Tiffany's hand-me-downs, but it was always, you're so beautiful. You're going to be so beautiful. Compliments and sugary, it just makes me sick to even think about it now, the way that I told my husband after hearing, I was kind of flashing back to being in her house and being with her. And I said, one of the biggest things that I remember for an incident is I was sitting there working on my homework at her table, and she was like cooking and making me something. And there was a fly in the kitchen. And she made a big point to tell me, there's a fly in here, but I can't even kill it. And she came and looked me right with those big blue eyes right in the face, and she goes, I could never even hurt a fly, not even a fly.
Wow.
And I remember saying to people over and over, she is the kindest, sweetest person. She could never even hurt a fly.
Wow. I'm really glad we're talking now, but I would have loved to have had that story 2 months ago.
I'm so sorry.
No.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. That is incredible. That's wow. Okay.
It tells you everything, honestly. And, when I was listening to the podcast about, Farley saying that about, I changed my story.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Kenny, I said, I don't remember saying that I changed my story at all. I don't believe I would have said, I hope you're not mad, but I'm going to change my story. How I remember it is that I was so anxious because I couldn't remember anymore any details. And I told him, I said, I know for a fact that she would make comments like, oh, I thought you said the car you saw was red. I thought you said the car was dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought you told me, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then by the time that I got ready and was supposed to go to the grand jury, I was so confused. And I asked when I went to the prosecutor's office, I saw all the murder pictures, all the crime scene photos.
Really?
Everything was out. And I remember like crying in the office and saying, I feel confused. All I know is what I said to the officer that day is the correct. But right now, I don't remember what that was. Can I read it? Can I be refreshed?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I use the word refresh, but I need help remembering because I feel so confused.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe that was her that made me confused.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and tried to confuse me.
So do you, like in the book, it says that one of the, private PIs took you to a store to look at cars. Do you remember doing that?
No, they drove me all over town. So right after that happened, right after I gave my statement initially, yes, they came multiple times and drove me over town. And that also honestly was confusing as well. I didn't get a good look at it, first of all. And, I would look at a car and go, could that be it? I don't know. Could that be it? And I also found the whole process very kind of scary and intimidating to be by myself in the back car of a police car with these officers. And the other thing, too, is because she had everyone convinced it was a mob hit,
mm-hmm.
And I had seen a car. So based on those two facts, my life was in danger. So, like my brother, who is 4 years older than me, he slept on a mattress outside of my bedroom every night.
For how long?
Until my parents sent me away to go live with my aunt and uncle because they were to protect me from a mob hit.
Do you remember when that was? At what point in 81 that was?
I remember it was that summer.
Okay.
Yeah, it was that summer. So that happened in March, and then when school was out, because my brother wasn't getting any sleep, and he had actually rigged the stairway. When you walked in the front door, the stairway was straight ahead, kind of, and my bedroom was straight up the stairs and on the left. And so my brother rigged the stairway with like bells and things so that somebody couldn't get me in the night.
Wow.
And so, I mean, that's how scared she had me and my family. And just she would come over there and borrow and go up into my room and use my phone because she would say the police had tapped her phone.
Yeah.
So she would use the phone at my house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What's your brother's name?
David King, also.
David. Okay.
And he's the one who, got sent around on the bike. But the night that she said someone broke into her house and she I remember that so well in terms of my brother. She had a gun in her hand. Mm-hmm. And she was following my brother through her house with a gun in her hand.
Wait, why would she, how did your brother get involved with that?
She was scared. So she came over or called and was like, somebody's just broken into my house, and I'm trying to remember the details. Is that when she shot out she put a bullet through her window?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that was the time, and so he went over there to help her walk through the house to make sure nobody was in there. And she literally walked behind him as like a human shield, but she was the one with the gun in her hand.
Wow.
And we actually had detectives that were doing surveillance in our camper, in our driveway. I don't remember how long that was, but...
So surveillance on her house?
Yeah, I don't know if they were there for protection or surveillance, but they were basically staked out in the camper in our driveway. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so wild, and all of these memories that have been, coming back. But I can remember going into her house right after it was cleaned. And kind of back to normal, and so that's what that time she was giving me clothes at Tiffany's, and I remember walking up those stairs and feeling really creeped out and trying to just tell myself that somebody didn't, just die there and that it was safe to be there. And what's so crazy is I was alone with her. Mm-hmm. and you can't get less safe than being alone with Mary Lee Orsini. And it wasn't until, my family, we're so little white bread, Christian, church every Sunday. This was just, we were the perfect cover for her in terms of people that, okay, let me connect with these good people, outstanding citizens, in order to, if they believe in me, then everyone else should believe in me too. Mm-hmm. And we did. We gave her a lot of cover, telling people how sweet and great she was and how she would never hurt a fly. And I just remember later, once we kind of really started doubting, as everyone, I really enjoyed hearing that part in your podcast.
Which part?
just the part where everybody starts to question her.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you would start to question her, then she would come around with something that would draw you back in or make you believe her. And then once the jig is up, you feel so stupid, that you were so gullible. And I know that my family, we were kind of like that too. Well, it's you don't really understand that people like that exist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to kind of wrap your mind around the fact that you've kind of been victimized by that kind of person.
Yeah.
Not to the extent, of course, as people that she took their life.
Yeah.
Or, talked them into taking someone else's life or whatever. But she had a way of manipulating and batting those big blue eyes and pulling you in and softening her tone. And I mean, with me, she was, what she said to me a lot was, because Tiffany would not be there. I was asking myself, where was Tiffany?
Mm-hmm.
Was she like at her dad's or her other family or her friends?
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time that's what the excuse she would give my parents and me for spending time with me is that, she really missed Tiffany and having me around helped her so much because I was, such great company and I helped her not miss Tiffany. And it was, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old doesn't want to feel, like, oh, this person really wants to spend time with me.
Yeah, I get it.
She thinks I'm going to grow up and be pretty and beautiful. Wow. Even though those are the ugliest years of your life, she sees that I'm going to be, beautiful. And, then just knowing how manipulated you've been. But, yeah.
So did you ever actually interact with Tiffany at all?
Yeah, I spent the night a few times with Tiffany, but my interaction was, she was 2 years older than me, so I was very much not very cool for her. So yeah, I saw her, but we did not interact as much as, I did with her mom.
Okay.
By far, yeah.
So, when you looked at the transcript of your interview, what stood up for you? What did you remember about sitting down and doing that interview?
Well, I more remembered by walking in the door that day and sitting at the table, and I remember giving the interview and it just seeming like such a simple thing, telling it, and that there just didn't seem that much to tell. It was just, I was surprised anybody cared, and didn't really think that it was noteworthy, but if they wanted to hear it, happy. And that was feeling like that's kind of the end of it. And then after, the time going by, feeling so, oh my gosh, they want me to go look at cars. Oh my gosh, they want, this from that. They, my life is in danger because of that. They have to send me away because of that. I have to testify at these, trials and, all this stuff just from that one little piece. And I think that came back to me when I read it last night too. Is like, wow, that's just so simple. There's really not that much there. and yet there was so much, upset, and drama, that came out of that. And And I know that she, wanted to use that on her behalf. And I do remember, I don't know if this is correct or if you've seen anything, but my sense, or I think maybe my parents told me at the time, that both sides were trying to use that testimony because she was trying to use it to say it could have been somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then the defense was trying to use it to say it was her. And at the time, she had made such efforts to get to know me and win me over. And again, I believe influence my thoughts, and win me to her side. Mm-hmm. That, I wanted to help her if I could. But then also just feeling scared and confused, and I felt like that was like adult stuff, and I was not equipped mm-hmm. to be there.
So
yeah, because I had to testify at 2. I had to go and give my statement, my testimony at 2 things. So the first one, I guess, would have been the grand jury, but there was another one. It would have been. I was like 13.
Yeah, that would have been the trial in 1983, when she was at. So.
Okay. Because I was thinking, well, if they didn't try her for that, why do I think I went twice? Because I went twice.
Yeah.
And I remember being like 13 the second time. And that one was horrible because I had really tried to move on and never think about it. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you're going to have to do this. And I remember saying, I don't remember anything. I don't want to be involved. And just not having a choice. Mm. So, yeah.
So 44 years later, after Mary Lee, twisted things in your mind, do you have any snapshot in your mind of what you saw that night?
What I remember the most is not the car. What I remember the most and can see in my mind is looking down and seeing the light come on. Mm-hmm. That's what I remember. And then I remember it coming around again. But I just wasn't even taking notice mm-hmm. of really what kind of car or anything. What drew my attention was more the light coming on and going off.
So which do you think it was? Do you think what you saw was Mary Lee going out in the middle of the night, probably to dispose of the gun? Or do you think Mary Lee tried to manipulate you just to muddy the waters?
I think that it probably was her. I believe it was her. But I think that she tried to muddy the waters to create the doubt.
Okay.
That's my belief. Is that, because probably what happened is she backed out, which I didn't even see. And once she got backed out, maybe she turned the light on for something, to where's the gun, where's this, so she may have just turned the light on really quick or didn't get her door closed and reclosed it, something, mm-hmm. And then the other was her, maybe her return. I just don't know.
Yeah. Well,
it's speculation.
Well, I mean, I'm really, really glad we could talk because, there's, of all the people we talked to on the podcast, I mean, they're the people who were, directly involved with everything. Who, if Mary Lee Orsini's a missile hitting the ground, they're the people who were, right there directly in the impact zone,
Yes.
and you're in the impact zone, but you're off to the side, like you so like you're kind of collateral damage in a sense.
For sure.
And
that's such a good way to put it. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So I do. Yeah, I'm glad we get to do this so people can get a sense that a lot of people's lives were impacted by this one woman.
Yes.
So how long did you guys live on Pontiac for?
I think we moved away maybe when I was like 16, something like that.
Okay.
So we were there for a few more years. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forgot to ask you. So July 2nd, 1982, with Mary Lee calling your parents and saying, "Oh, there's 2 black men outside my door or outside my house." Yeah. What do you remember about that day? Or were you there?
I don't remember that. My dad might remember that. I'll have to ask my dad or my brother about that. I remember seeing her car with the, glass broken. I remember seeing the way that her door was scraped by coming in her garage. I remember her showing us that.
What do you mean her door? What do you mean her door was scraped? You mean on the garage, like where she used the chisel on it? You mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You saw that. Okay.
Yeah. She showed me all of that. And because again, it was her trying to be able to use us and our family as, no, I've seen it. I saw that it was, it looked like somebody broke in, but I remember at the time even hearing my parents say, "Do you think that was the inside or the outside?" That looks, I don't know. It could have been either way. She could have done it herself. But then she'd reel you back in, some other way. But I don't remember about the 2 black men personally.
Okay.
But what I remember a lot is her being on her front porch. I remember her like being in a shirt and panties and hugging Bill MacArthur on her front porch.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that she always had a lot of men coming and going. Yeah. I remember Wolf, the veterinarian, and being introduced to him. And so I definitely remember meeting him, being around him a little bit. I remember being around Bill MacArthur and seeing him. And I remember one time very specifically, I can remember it was like an early morning, and she was hugging him on her front stoop with just like a long button-down shirt with nothing on underneath, and we were all those kinds of things when he was first accused of being involved. I know for my family and I, we were like, well, we did, he was over there a lot. We did, he was at her house. We saw them on the front porch, things like that casted some doubt. But then she was dating someone else and she was casual in that way. So, yeah.
So how did you know it was Bill MacArthur? I guess how
We met him. I mean, like,
Okay.
we knew who he was, and,
Okay.
like, I could recognize his face.
Okay.
But yeah, because he was over there, periodically. It wasn't that he never came to her house or never saw him there.
Well, he was her attorney, so he had a reason to be over there. So.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just saying that was the kind of thing that made us feel like,
okay.
We believe her. She's such a great person, and she's, this here in the paper it says that Bill MacArthur was behind having his wife killed, and so maybe they had a relationship or something, so it's just enough to cast doubt. And honestly, I think that's why she wanted it to be on the front porch like that.
So people would see it? Yeah. Okay.
So I don't think that anything was going on. Okay. I just think that I don't mean that. I don't know if it was or not, but I don't mean that. What I mean is that, thank you. I think she would want people to not be short.
Okay. Yeah. So before we wrap this up, so you said you met with Farley when you were an adult. So what was that? How'd that happen? What was that interaction like?
Well, it's kind of strange. My dad had a pharmacy in Little Rock, and he had been held up at gunpoint, and I worked there. Oh. And he actually was the detective that came in, and we were talking, and he just kind of made a comment that was like, I didn't believe you anyway, or something like that. And it really created kind of the seed of doubt. And that's when I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, did you have a sense that I made that up? Because one thing that you can know about me is I'm so transparent. I love the truth. I seek the truth. I love to live in it, walk in it, and sleep well at night with it. And so I tend to be very careful that I don't exaggerate my words, that I don't, or if I say I don't remember, if I'm not sure, I'll say I don't quite remember, or like I did with you, keep in mind this is through the eyes of a young person. Yeah. I want to be sure that I'm accurate. And so it was really reassuring for my mom to come back and say, no way, you were just so immediately out with it. You were completely genuine, and the confusion you felt was probably because it was very traumatizing. Yeah. After that, because I just kept thinking to myself, whatever I said then was 100% true. Yeah. I just don't remember what it was. I feel so confused in my mind that really the only thing I can say was read that, because that's the truth. Mm-hmm. Go back to that, and that's my statement. I'm still sticking with that, because I don't know now. I feel toyed with, messed with, manipulated, and
yeah. So even after all that, you would see Mary Lee's car. Would you ever look at her car and go, "Hey, that's it"?
Well, I definitely would look at it and say it could have been. Yeah. It could have been. It was that size. Yeah. It was, dark at night. The street lamp was actually out. I believe that night the street lamp was out. It was dark. And so that's what made it stand out that the light came on. So,
That's an interesting detail. The streetlight was out. So cool. So so this weekend's episode, is it's all about her confession, and she addresses your statement, or not sort of. She addresses, there wasn't any car outside the house. I didn't see anything. I didn't see any jacked up car, and so she uses the exact terminology that she I guess forced onto you to testify. So that's interesting. So
really, like,
yeah, because like in the book, Widow's Web, like Farley says that your testimony changed to being a jacked up car in the back. Then she comes in her confession and uses basically that same terminology.
Wow. Wow, that is telling, because I told Kenny, I said, I can't tell you, the one thing that I remember coming straight out of her mouth, and the way she said it, and the earnestness that she said it, was that about the fly. That she could never hurt a fly. But I know that she made comments like, I thought you said it was a loud car. Oh, was it quiet or loud? I mean, she was trying to make me confused. Oh, I thought you told me that it was clean. I thought you told me it was dirty. I thought you told me it was red, or, whatever. Trying to make me, did I say that? Oh gosh, I don't remember, So, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she brings it up.
What did she say?
You'll get to hear it on Sunday.
You made me wait. That's so mean.
Oh, it's only 3 more days. I will send it to you when it's out, and then you can listen to it, and then I'll call you again and so get your thoughts. So
yeah.
But no, like during the course of the interview, she brings up the car on her own.
Wow.
She brings it up on her own. So.
Well, I do believe that it was important to her at the time, because she really wanted to try to create doubt, or her attorney did. So I do feel that she believed it was important to manipulate me, if that makes sense. Like she had a reason to. So it's not just me, disparaging her character. She had good reason to try to make the case that, it wasn't. But she didn't say that was her car.
No. She said, She said, I didn't see a car or anything like that. That's how she phrased it. I didn't see a car out front. I don't know what you're talking about. That's how she phrased it. So.
Did she say how she got rid of the gun?
She said she put the gun in the back seat of her car, or there wasn't a back seat, but she put it behind her driver's seat, and she kept it there till the morning, and then she says that after she dropped off Tiffany at school, that's when she went and disposed of the gun in an area near the Jacksonville, Sherwood area. So
interesting.
But no, she was, she confesses, but she's still lying through her teeth about so much other stuff. So,
exactly.
In my mind, she was like, okay, fine, I'm going to confess, but I'm going to make sure that I make it to where nothing that TJ Farley uncovered is accurate. So she was sticking her nose at him even till the end, I think. That's how I view it. So.
I can see that. She would, especially with that I mean, she's a psychopath, and, she would want to manipulate till the end, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I know this has been a surreal thing for you. And it has been for me, because I really didn't think I'd find you or whatever. So I think, I don't know what her last name is now or anything like that. So, but no, I'm really glad you reached out, Tracy. This has been really, really interesting. And like I said, I'm glad I can provide this opportunity for you to figure stuff out, work stuff out, just.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been really healing, honestly, because, like I said, I carried a lot of guilt, for the way, because I remember when my parents told me that the defense was using it to create doubt, and the prosecution was using it, to say that it was her. And so then when she, did not, when they didn't want to take her to trial, they didn't feel like they had enough. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the defense was able to use that, and now another person is dead. And I've carried a lot of guilt and responsibility for that. And, it's great to hear that the MacArthur kids are doing well, and, because I've loved them from afar for a long time and felt bad from afar for a long time, and listening to the tapes though, and just realizing how she was not going to be stopped. It just wasn't in her, she was driven to be the way that she was. And she manipulated everyone that way. Yeah.
And another reason I'm glad I could talk to you is because, there's so few people left, who were adults from back then who actually, interacted with her, except like Jack Lassiter, who was MacArthur's law partner, Chris Piazza, who was the prosecuting attorney for the MacArthur trial. So being able to talk to you is fulfilling in that sense. I can really talk to someone who was around her, who was affected by her, and so that was important for me, because there's so few of you left. So,
True. Well, thank you for also making me feel that way too, because I felt a little silly, saying something, and so thank you for making me feel like I don't have to feel silly for that.
No, you don't have to feel silly at all. You were a small piece of a big story, but it was still an important piece.
Yeah. Well, and just, I think reiterating what you guys have brought out in the podcast is, I know with, Phoebe, right? How she was talking about the fear that she and her family had, being around her, or just the whole scenario. I mean, she just had so many people scared, and she had no conscience whatsoever about how her lives affected other people, and it's pretty amazing that you can have somebody that just they don't have that empathy for, if I say this, and that will have this ripple effect or this consequence, and she just didn't have that. She didn't have that.
She did not. So.
And you guys really brought that out, which was healing for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could do that. I really am.